right, welcome back to part two of the Stick 'em Up podcast free agency breakdown.
Yeah.
Where we just talked about Anaheim all the way to Montreal, and now we're going to go from Nashville to the end of the NHL.
Boom.
So,
Let's do it.
all right, so the Predators, among trading away and buying out quite a few guys, they made some decent signings here.
Yeah, they're in the big Dick Barry era now. I don't know. I don't understand what they're doing. I
No, I
just
think
really
it's
don't.
Yeah, it's very like they're not trying to compete, they're not trying to rebuild. They're doing whatever the fuck Barry Trotz feels like he wants to do right now. I think that's
Exactly.
his version of a rebuild, but I think he's looking to make it a real quick one.
Well, and it makes no sense to me why, like as we talked previously with the whole, getting rid of Johansson and Duchesne, but then they bring in Ryan O'Reilly right after. It
Yeah,
makes no
four
sense. And
years
then
at
even
4.5.
yeah, and then even Gus Nyquist, they bring in Luke Shen. It's nice to see they got Carrier and Cody Glass re-signed, kind of their younger guys that they've been developing, but I'm not understanding the process of what they're doing right now.
Yeah, I've online more than any other team. I've seen so many Nashville fans being like, I have no idea what's going on. But they're all seem to be hesitantly trusting Trotz right now. But
Yeah,
it's a weird time in Nashville for sure.
you just got to let Trotz cook a little bit. But like I don't hate the signings they've made. It's very weird given what they did the entire week prior leading up to it,
Yeah,
which makes me just a little unsure of what direction they're going in. Like I very well see Nashville running into an issue that San Jose was in for years. Like really, San Jose should have started their rebuild, a couple years ago, and now they're not really committing to it until like last year, and now running through it there. Like Nashville's going to be in that area where they're nowhere near contender, but they're not rebuilding. They're going to be that tweener team where you probably miss the playoffs, and it just kind of much like last year, you get that 15, 16 pick. So it's like you weren't a playoff team, but you were the best of all the teams that missed. So you don't get a good pick, and it's not even a lottery pick. And you just keep recycling that for 2 or 3 years. It eventually you hit a point where now you're really rebuilding, and you've got not really any high end assets, and all your good players, you're not going to be able to get any good value for them at that point, or
yeah,
as
that
good
was
as you could get, I guess I would say, because you could probably still get a decent amount for some of their guys, 2 or 3 years down the road, if they end up, wanting to go chase a cup or something.
yeah. I think they're kind of in a dangerous spot of you because you don't want to end up like what Minnesota had been for the 10 years prior to getting Kaprizov.
Yeah.
Like they're just always picking between pick 13 and 17 and never getting much better, never getting worse, so you can't fully enter the rebuild. Luckily, they just hit on a fifth round pick for Kaprizov, and the franchise has been revitalized since. But before that, it was pretty grim over there for a while.
Yeah, they were in a really tough spot for quite a few years, and I think we're going to kind of see that again, like we talked about for the next couple years, just due to that, buyouts they got and whatnot. Yeah, but yeah, Nashville, I'm not certain what they got going on, but again, Barry Trotz just took over, so I'm giving the benefit of the doubt and kind of letting him cook a bit and see what he's got coming up here for him, over the next however many years.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys that has enough of a reputation that he'll, regardless of the how the team does, I think for 2 or 3 years he'll be good there to
Yeah.
to really put his own plan into effect. before anyone starts really questioning it too much.
Yeah, exactly, right. I agree. All on board.
Yeah. Moving on to the New Jersey Devils. They didn't make a lot of signings, but there's some pretty good signings. I like a lot of what they did.
And the biggest thing with New Jersey more than anything is they got Jesper Bratt and Timo Meier signed, which was their big moves. Those that was on their agenda more than anything. They
Yeah.
were able to do that, and now, um, almost kind of running it back with pretty much very similar to, uh, the team they had last year. Obviously, they've got a couple intriguing prospects coming up, like Luke Hughes, Simone Nemec on the blue line. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that goes for them with those young guys. So they really didn't need to go out and bring in any big free agents because they still kind of got that really young, good core that they've already established.
Yeah, and they still went out and they traded who was it, Siegenthaler for Toffoli and
No, Sharon Govich.
Sharon Govich, yes, for
Yeah.
uh, for Tyler Toffoli. They
Yeah, and
uh,
even adding
they
Toffoli's
signed,
huge for them.
yeah, and they re-upped Nathan Bastian for a 2-year contract, McLeod for 1 year. I really like the Eric Shalgren contract. I think that has potential to be really good, considering it's what is it, a 1 year, two-way deal, 775 grand. Like that's nothing for a guy who with Toronto looked really good.
Yeah, like he could easily come in and be a serviceable backup for them. And if it doesn't work out, it's like, okay, well, you're not really paying him anything, and he can still go be a great guy down in the AHL for them.
Yeah, you could easily bury that. And like I think he's in a few years going to be a starter in the NHL. I think Shalgren's going to be good. Maybe not elite
Yeah.
level, but I definitely think he'll have a consistent job in the NHL in a few years.
Yeah, and now that we're past the draft, I think we can kind of get more of a better look at the Timo Meyer trade, and it's really starting to look more like an even trade for both sides. Especially now that, we know how that first round pick for this year ended up being for San Jose. The pick next year is either a second or a first. I'm more, especially based on what the Devils have done and what they have coming up, I'm leaning more towards it's probably going to be another first round pick for San Jose next year.
What are the
Assuming
conditions on that? Is that
so
them
it's
making it to the
it's
conference finals?
yeah, they just got to make it to the Eastern Conference final.
Right.
And they either had to make it this year or next year, and that pick would be upgraded from a second to a first. So either way, it's like whether it's a second or a first, it's going to be late in that round. So I'm assuming it's a late first round pick. But like the Devils now got Meyer on a good contract. He's gonna have a full off season with the guys, kind of working with the team more comfortable. And then San Jose, they got good players out of it originally, and then the guy they used the first round pick on, Quentin Musty, like that looks like such a good trade for both sides now, especially the Devils in the now and in the next couple years because now they're really on Cup watch. I think given the roster
Yeah.
that they have.
Yeah, I think after this breakout year, I think going into this next year, they're officially like top tier contenders, not just guys to make the playoffs.
Yeah, they're no longer like they'll squeak in as like maybe a wild card or maybe get third in the Metro or something like they're right in there with, I
They're
wouldn't
going to
even
be up
say
there
they're
with
I mean, they're
Tampa,
right up there with
Toronto, the Rangers.
yeah, even Carolina like they could easily win the President's Trophy next year and I would not be surprised. And
Yeah.
there's still rumors swirling that they might trade for Hellebuck from the Jets. And so you bring Hellebuck in like
My
that
God.
team is instantly would be my cup favorite.
I was going to say that moves them from a cup contender to a cup favorite real quick.
Yeah. So far really solid offseason for the Devils. And I'm sure there's going to be lots more from them, going up to the beginning of the regular season next year.
Mhm. Next up, we got the New York Islanders. A lot of longer contracts that they signed. A lot of these teams have, signed a bunch of guys to 1 year, 2 year deals. They've got two guys who signed a 7 year extension and a 1 4 year.
Yeah, and I'm even looking on this. This isn't even including their biggest signing. Like pretty much all the Islanders signings have been re-upping their current guys. And this doesn't even include their biggest one, which is Ilya Sorokin signing an 8 year extension um with the team.
What was that for? Was that for 9 million a year?
8.25, which
8.25.
in my honest opinion, out of any goalie in the league, he is by far on a pure athleticism level, he is number one. I'm not saying
Yeah,
fully
he is very
skill,
good.
but athleticism, is his athleticism is basically what prime Jonathan Quicks was, maybe even better. And
Yeah,
so to have him locked up for, I mean, 8.25 for 8 years, like the term, isn't honestly bad given his age. Like, what is he, 26? So it only takes him till he's 34. Like, you've got him now locked up for the prime
yeah,
of his career, and now
yeah. And
he's
goalies
really
last
just hitting his
longer.
stride.
And goalies
Yeah,
often tend to stay at their prime level and take a lot longer to fall off than regular players do. So that, going to 34 is probably not going to be too much of an issue.
exactly. Like, and then Engvall and Mayfield both signed for 7 years. It like people are like, oh, those are such long contracts, but it's like, but look at the AAV they're now getting. Like, it's so much lower, and those are great guys that are, especially Mayfield, are huge on the penalty kill, and
Yeah.
Engvall really kind of solidified himself into a good role with the Islanders. Near the end of the regular season and even in the playoffs. He's just a big body. He's got speed. Uh, I'm not too big on the Varlamov signing. Like 4 years is a bit much for a guy who's what is he? Is he 34 right now?
35 right now.
35. So it takes him till he's like, I mean, and so he's a great backup though. Like you're paying him, like you're paying over 10 mil for your goalies, which isn't ideal. But like again though, it's
It's a
it's a
lot
position
for a
that we're,
guy when you have Sorokin,
well,
right?
exactly.
Like,
But it goes back to at the end of our last one we did talking about kind of like the Kings. If Sorokin suffers a pretty bad injury, misses some time, you still got Varlamov who can easily, carry your team for for 55 plus games in a season if need be, and even in the playoffs. So like that's a great 1-2 punch with your goalies for the future. So if anything does happen to Sorokin, like Varlamov is more than capable of coming
stepping
in
in and being that starter
and
role
yeah,
if he
he
needs
can
to.
still be a brick wall for the Islanders. So I don't like how much they're paying him. Like I wish it was a little bit less. But that's just such a solid goaltending tandem
Yeah.
for at least the next 3 years. Don't know if Varley will play that fourth year of the contract, maybe, but at least 3 years. That's such a deadly duo in the net for them.
Yeah, and they're both Russian goaltenders, correct?
Yeah.
Like that's
Well, the
it's always nice to
biggest,
have the guys in the same position from the same country, kind of have they probably had a rather similar upbringing through the systems and whatnot to
one
get to the
and
NHL.
yeah, and the biggest thing when they got Varlamov was he has so like obviously yeah he's Russian, same as Sorokin, but Varlamov also has the same agent as Sorokin. And so a big part of bringing Varley over was to convince Sorokin to come over to North America and play for the Islanders and be part of that team, which ended up happening. And so you know what? I feel like the Islanders kind of owe it to Varlamov with this contract because I I'm still on the fence. Like if it wasn't for Varlamov, I'm not fully sure if you would have Sorokin now locked in for an 8 year deal. And even if you got him over, I don't know if he would have stuck around the way that he has so far and is going to continue to if it wasn't for Varlamov. So I think this is maybe almost the Islanders' way of saying thanks for coming in and being our guy for a couple years and passing the torch on to this generational goalie now that Sorokin is.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm just excited to watch, assuming a couple years down the road that Shesterkin re-ups with the Rangers. I'm excited to see the battle of because Sorokin and Shesterkin are like best friends.
Yeah,
So watching those two battle it out, I really hope we see Islanders Rangers in the playoffs.
yeah,
While these two goalies are in their prime, because to watch these two battle it out, because they are both beasts in the playoffs. Like that would be such a fun series to watch, and just not even for that, just that rivalry between the two teams alone.
yeah. That would be a great series to watch. That'd be so fun. And you also got other certain matchups. You got Scott Mayfield versus Jacob Trouba, stuff like that. Like that would be a really fun series to watch.
Yeah, I would. Oh, we can only like we are so close to getting it this year. Like I really thought there was a chance we could have got it, but uh, didn't happen. Maybe next year, because I still see the Rangers as potentially they could very well. We'll get to them coming up next year and the moves they made. We could easily see Rangers finish top of the Metro, Islanders in a wild card, and maybe we see them battle it out. I would love that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, like you
Now,
said, next
speaking of the Rangers,
we got the Rangers. Another one of those teams that there's a lot of people for 1 or 2 year contracts. Do we
yeah,
want to start off with the Blake Wheeler contract?
yeah. I mean, so I wish I had some here. Pour one out here for anyone who was a big fan of the Atlanta Thrashers. So Blake Wheeler was actually the final member of the Thrashers that came to Winnipeg when they relocated. So now there's nobody left on the Winnipeg Jets that wore a Thrashers jersey.
Yep, the end of an
It's
era.
kind of a tough go, but it just sucks seeing Wheeler, it kind of end the way it did with Winnipeg, get stripped of the C, doesn't even get, an A or something. They're kind of rotating and whatnot last year, and then ends with a buyout. Um, and now signs with the Rangers. Like he's just cup chasing. Can't blame the guy.
Yeah,
Um, but like, yeah, that's a great ad for the Rangers. You've got big bodies like him and Chris Kreider on the wings. Like those are two great big power forwards who can put up points for you. And I think Wheeler signed cheap. Like I don't even know if it
I
was
think
$1 million.
no 800K.
Yeah, it's
Like
like that's the power you get when you're the Rangers in Madison Square Garden. Like you can get a lot of those guys to sign for cheap to come and try and win a cup there and whatnot.
yeah, they honestly, I'm surprised the Rangers haven't done better in the past few years, given just all the seeming advantages they've got. Guys like Adam Fox. He's just like, I'm only going to play there. A Norris winning defenseman just would only play for your team. Like
Even
Patrick
freaking what's
Kane.
his name? Jimmy VC. I mean, he turned out to be kind of a bust, but he was a high touted prospect at the time when he forced his way to the Rangers.
Yeah, like they constantly have very skilled players flocking to them specifically. They got these guys signing cheap. We'll see if in the next few years if they can pull one out.
I just I cannot believe that you go to with the team they already had. You go out at the deadline, get Patrick Kane and Tarasenko, and you go up first round. It's just like, and Shesterkin put up like what was it, a 9.40 save percentage or something through those 7 games. Like the goal scoring was just not there for the Rangers. Really, they were dominant games 1 and 2, and then it just wasn't really there much for the rest of the season or series.
Yeah, who are the two guys that really disappeared that series? Panarin and was it Zibanejad?
Yeah, yeah.
They just kind of dried up. You need scoring from your top guys in those close series, and they just couldn't
Yeah.
get it.
Also, not a huge signing, but Jonathan Quick, three-time Stanley Cup champ, goes to the Rangers. Backup goalie. I guess that was his childhood team growing up, so it's probably pretty cool for him now. Yeah, it's better late than never, right? Like in his career, he finally gets to go actually play for the Rangers, and I think he's still got a very realistic chance of winning a cup there with them. So that's kind of cool to see that all come full circle for him in his career.
Yeah, for sure. That's pretty much, those are pretty much the only other big
Oh,
signings, really.
I didn't realize they got Nick Bonino. Oh, that's
Oh,
a
they got
great depth
Benino.
signing for them, actually. That's a great penalty killer. That is a great move for them, actually. I like that one. I'm a big Nick Bonino fan, so that's a great signing for the Rangers. Wish he didn't go to the Rangers, but nonetheless,
Yeah,
that's a good signing for them.
that's a good signing for them.
Also, though, they still don't have Lafreniere and Keandre Miller signed. Both of them are still just have been qualified as RFAs and are they're open to be offer sheeted right now. Like
Somebody should do it. Somebody needs to do it.
when is the last time there was a first round pick who
First overall pick.
and
Lafreniere's case.
yeah, sorry, yeah, first overall pick that ended up in a point where like because what is he? He's just coming off his entry level contract.
Yeah.
And he didn't have an extension in place. He didn't get signed right away as it expired. Like they qualified him, and he's sitting there bait on the market. Like that is just
Somebody
blows
should
my
do it.
mind. Someone's
I
got
so
to.
bad I so badly want these NHL teams to stop acting like a rich man's country club and an old boys club and start acting like a professional sports team. Somebody needs to go out there and say, "Hey, fuck the Rangers. I want a guy who's first overall talent." Like you can just have
What?
him for not even that much. Like
Well, I'm pretty sure like Carolina and New Jersey both still have some decent cap space, if I'm not mistaken. Like, why not be like, hey, laugh like 2 years, $6 million. I think you have to give up like first, a first and a third, or a first, a second, and a third, or something, and just go balls to the wall and be like, hey, Rangers, you're either paying Lafreniere $6 million, or you're losing him, and we're gonna turn him into the first overall pick that he was. Like,
yeah, I'm very confident that if he goes somewhere else, he will immediately improve, or at
he's
least
gonna
over a few
thrive.
years, he will get way better.
Yeah,
He's just not in a place to do what he needs to do as that type of player, as that elite playmaking and scoring winger.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I really hope we see an offer sheet. I barely care which team does it.
I would
Obviously,
just
some of the
love to
really
see it
low down
happen.
teams don't want to, in case, they give up a lottery pick.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Because you can't have
but
conditions on those. Like that's just you're giving up those picks. Like there's no conditions.
yeah,
It's
there's
just
no
straight up
protection.
you're giving them away right there.
Yeah, but a team that thinks they might, be kind of middling this year again, like a team like Minnesota, if they think they're just barely going to make the playoffs, or if they think they're going to be just outside the playoffs, freaking offer sheet them for 6 mil, 6 point something mil, give up 3 picks that maybe they'll turn into something, maybe they won't, and then you're getting a guy that is going to be at the very least NHL caliber, but more than likely he's going to be really good. Could you imagine if he is what people touted him as, and then they've got him on the other side of Kaprizov?
Well, and exactly, right? Like I would rather take a 21, 22-year old first overall pick who's been used poorly rather than a middle first round pick who you don't know how that's going to pan out.
Yeah,
Like Lafreniere is
if
a first overall pick for a reason. Like he's got the skill. The Rangers just have put him in such a shit position. And I think I've even
yeah,
seen uh rumors that they've it's not like official, but that he's available for trade.
yeah, I've
So
definitely heard that they're entertaining it. but I don't think they want to, but they're kind of in a position where they feel like they might need to, which, you know, if they don't have the cap space, if you don't like a trade you're being offered, just force their hand and offer sheet them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't think they're going to let Keandre Miller go anywhere. I think they'd keep him before Lafreniere.
Yeah, I would agree. Their forward is so deep. Like there's no room for Lafreniere to grow, but there's room for Keandre Miller to grow and excel into a top two defenseman. If his ceiling, gets that high.
Yeah. It sounded like you were saying something. We got breaking news or something, or were you just thinking there?
Nope, no breaking news currently. I'm keeping
Oh,
an eye on
keep
it
an eye
though.
out
I'm
for
keeping
it.
an eye on it. Yeah.
All
'Cause I
right.
feel like
Well, next we
there's
got the
something
Ottawa
brewing.
Senators. We
The
got
Ottawa
a 5-year
Senators.
contract for Korpisalo, the 1-year extension for Brandstrom, and Hamonic signing a 2-year contract are the big ones here.
Yeah. I mean, like the big one is obviously Korpisalo. Now Ottawa's finally got a goalie locked up and committed there. But again, everything with Ottawa always just comes back around to, what are they doing with DeBrincat? Like when is that inevitable trade going to happen? Because it sounds like it very clearly is going to happen. And so yeah, it's just kind of a mess there right now with that whole situation, which is kind of just overshadowing anything else that they kind of do at this point.
Yeah, there's been quite a few rumors that they're trying to move to Brinkett now so that they can sign Tarasenko maybe.
Yeah, although that
But
sounds like there's some news surrounding Tarasenko that we'll get to with one of these later teams down the list here.
all right, all right. You have much opinion on the Hamonic?
I
The
mean,
Hamonic
it's a
contract?
good signing. Like he's nowhere near the player he once was. Like a lot of people forget he was traded for like a first and a second round pick from the Islanders back when he was like in his prime. And from the moment he left the Islanders, he just was never the same player. And I know a lot of
Yeah,
injuries happened and took place. There's rumors that, especially in Vancouver, he wasn't good in the locker room. Like they had to kind of get him out of there. But with Ottawa, it just seems like he's kind of found a home. It sounds like he's been great in the locker room for their young guys. So maybe that was just a Vancouver issue, not necessarily Hamonic. I think it's a great signing for Ottawa, though. He's a great, 5'6" defenseman. Kills penalties, blocks shots, lays some big hits. Like he does what he's asked of, and he excels at it. So I think that's a good signing for Ottawa. It's a cheap deal as well. I think it's only like 1.1 mil or something.
yeah,
Um,
1.1 for 2 years.
Yeah, so like that's a great signing for Ottawa. I've got no complaints there. Yeah, more than anything, I'm just really curious to see what happens with DeBrincat. It sounds like it's either Detroit or the Islanders. It sounds like are the two teams still kind of throwing out offers. Sounds like nothing's really close yet, but yeah, it's just something to kind of keep an eye on and see when that whole saga comes to a close.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and then there was also Eric Brandstrom signing for 1 more year for $2 million.
Yeah,
Kind of
that's
seems
just
like
kind
they're
of
just not even a bridge deal, just kind of kicking the can down the road. Kind of they. It's really hard to tell what kind of player he's going to end up being, and this gives him 1 more year to figure that out.
yeah, exactly. It's like so. Like it this that when I saw that signing, it very much reminded me of for anyone who plays like the NHL games, when you've got like a guy that's just requesting a whole bunch of money that doesn't deserve it. And so you just give him that shitty 1 year deal for like a cheap contract and you're like, "Oh, hopefully next year he'll ask for less." That's almost what this deal seems like. Cuz
Yeah,
for a guy like Branson for a 1 year deal, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, cause that's not really a bridge deal. Cause like a bridge deal, you want to do like 2 million for 2 to 3 years. it seems like a 1 year deal is just kind of DM'd to next year so they can get their whole cap situation maybe more figured out.
Yeah, figure out
I
what they
think a
want to do
part,
with him while not dealing with the DeBrincat situation.
yeah. And I think the Brandstrom for 1 year is almost so because Ottawa's made it very clear they're open to bringing DeBrincat back for another year, and then maybe they move him at the deadline, or they sign him to that 8 year extension at the at the end of next season, and then trade him then, like do a sign and trade. And so I feel like maybe that's why Brandstrom got the 1 year, so then you can still bring DeBrincat back on a 1 year deal. If there's no trade that's that fits Ottawa right for the time being.
Yeah, and I'm just throwing out there that Eric Brandstrom really was a EA Sports franchise mode legend for many
Yeah,
years. He always grew to
yeah,
be like one of the best defensemen in the league.
yeah. We'll see what. And he was, I mean, he was the big part of the Mark Stone trade. So like, there's, it'll be interesting to see how he fully pans out with Otto because I fully haven't. We just haven't seen him get to that level that we know he's capable of being a former first round pick and whatnot.
Yeah, it's really only he doesn't have a lot of time to prove that he could be that guy at this point. He's got 2 or 3 more years before teams are really going to be like, okay, this is what he is.
Yeah, exactly. It's starting to get into that crunch time of make or break now.
But moving on, we got the Philadelphia Flyers. Not too many
Yeah.
big signings here. A couple of decent depth ones that, let's be real, on the Flyers they'll probably play in the top six. But
Yeah, exactly, right? Like they're not making those big moves because like they're fully committed to that rebuild. Um like yeah, there's really not I mean like, Hathaway signed 2 years. He's a typical Flyers type of guy. Mark Stahl, that was kind of a surprise. He'll probably be moved, at the deadline to a contender to be like a sixth, seventh defenseman. Like just not nothing eye grabbing for the Flyers right now. They're kind of just committing to the rebuild and moving forward with what they already have.
yeah, they're all just sitting around twiddling their thumbs waiting for Michkov.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like yeah, that's pretty much all they're doing at this point. And you know what? I can't say blame them.
I don't know the entire situation inside and out, but I'm just gonna try and quickly Google it here. But the
Googling it live.
Flyers goalie who had was having all kinds of issues over in Russia that they drafted that they wanted to sign to a contract, and then the KHL said no, they had to stay, and then he ended up getting like draft abducted into the military over there. It sounds like he might just be good to go. It sounds like they're just letting him come over to America now and play for the Flyers.
Oh, really? I
So
totally forgot about that whole thing.
yeah, so I mean, so he just got like damn near abducted and put into the military up in fucking Siberia or something for a while. But it sounds like the KHL and Russia was kind of like, okay, well, so how good is this guy really going to be? Is it worth doing this? Maybe we should let him go over to the Flyers, and maybe in exchange, the Flyers will honor Michkov's contract and not try and bring him over early because they know Michkov is a much bigger deal.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, my firm belief is still that Michkov is gonna have to finish out those 3 years in Russia. Like I really don't see a way of the Flyers bypassing any of that. But yeah, no,
I
I
thought
totally
I thought
forgot
there
about
was a
that
chance.
goalie.
I thought there was a chance they might get around it, but after that, I definitely think they're they're going to honor it. They're going to let him play out his 3 years, or
Yeah,
what? They sign him, and then they'll probably just do the same thing to Mishkov, right? So
Yeah, I think the only way
I think
that
they got to let him play it out now.
yeah, I think the only way we see Michkov come over early is if he makes that happen. I don't think the Flyers can control that or make that happen in reality. I think it comes down to Michkov would have to be the one to um, strong arm or whoever and whatever to get his way over here early.
Yeah, fully openly defect, kind of. That
Yeah.
goalie's name is Ivan Fedotov, by the way.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's yeah. Okay.
It was hard to talk and spell Philadelphia on Google.
Yeah, that's. I was just typing Philly and hope it works.
Philadelphia Flyers goalie Russia. He's the only thing that comes up.
Yeah, no such thing as bad press, right? Um. Yeah. So I don't know. Do you got anything more for the Flyers? Like, I think that's like they really didn't do much. There's not
Not
too
really.
much
I mean, they
diving in
lost
deep
Van
you can with
Riemsdyk.
them, but
They let
yeah,
Van
which we knew
Riemsdyk go.
was gonna happen.
But yeah, not much to say there. Unlike the next team we got here, Pittsburgh Penguins. They got some guys.
Yeah, they're and it's kind of what we talked about before. They are all in on going for one final run with the core of Crosby, Malkin, and Tanger. Not necessarily one final run, but get one more cup. Because I
Yeah, or
think
at the
that's
very
still
least, I
definitely
think.
in the realm for them of possibilities.
Yeah, I definitely think it's most important that they show they're not just gonna lay over and rebuild. I think as long as you show you're trying and you at least make the playoffs while you still have Crosby, I think that's the benchmark. Like if they
Yeah.
don't win another cup, like look at the East, look at the talent around the league. Some of the teams are so stacked. I don't think anyone's going to blame Kyle Dubas or Crosby or any of them if they don't win another one. But if
Yeah,
they
no.
miss the playoffs the next 3 years in a row, then I think people are going to be wondering what the hell's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Like obviously the biggest kind of one for them is they got Tristan Jarry signed to another 5 years. I don't know what are they paying him? What was his AAV in the end? I didn't quite catch it.
I think it was decent. I think it was 4.5,
Uh
5.375 million
okay.
annually.
Which you know what? Honestly, I don't think is bad for him.
No,
Like,
if he can stay healthy and kind of get back on track, I think that'll be a just fine contract.
well, and so the alternative, because I saw a lot of people being like, oh, that's, an overpay for Jari and whatnot. But the reality is, you kind of had to give him that because if you don't, then what? You don't really have a starting goalie. And if you're going to go out and trade for one like Hellebuck, you're going to have to give up a lot. And
Yeah.
I don't think Jari's bad by any means. And now you have Jari, and then you still have all these, picks and prospects, and it sounds like they're still, kicking tires on Eric Carlson. If you were to lose Jari and, again, like Hellebuck, you trade for him, there's no way you have the assets to trade for a guy like Carlson at that point. So I think it's a good move for the Penguins to stick with Jari and, keep rolling with the guys from kind of within.
Yeah, I think that was pretty good. I did not hear about this next one here, but Noel Achari, 3 years, 2 million per season. That's a great signing for them. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
that's very good. And I put that one right in there with the Matt Nieto signing for 2 years. The even fun fact with Nieto, this is gonna be the fifth time now where you're in his career where he's starting the season with a different team from last year. But this is only his third team he's ever played on because he started with San Jose, got traded to Colorado, played there for a bit, then signed back with San Jose, and then got traded to Colorado again last year before the deadline. Um,
Huh.
but I think a guy like Nieto and Achari together is so good for the Penguins' bottom six because they bring speed, a little bit of tenacity, good penalty killers, and they're not really paying them much. Like they're great depth signings at a reasonable price. And
And they
when
got
you're
a
a
little
team
bit
like
of
the
term on them,
Penguins, you
like
you
Noel
need
Achari for
it.
3 years.
Yeah, exactly right. And then even Lars Eller, he signed a 2-year deal. I'm just gonna pull up here and see what he was given here by the Penguins.
Yeah, I
So
wonder
two
how much
years,
it being
2.45, which is great for a guy like Lars Eller as well, who's again also a former
yeah
Cup champ. So he's got that
bit of
he's
pedigree.
got that experience and that veteranship, that leadership. He's going to be a great addition to their bottom six as well.
Yeah, I think I gotta wonder how much it being Kyle Dubas negotiating that stuff helped with signing a guy like Noel Achari. You know, he's the guy who brought him into Toronto at the deadline last year,
Yeah.
and you know, it from everything I've heard, Kyle Dubas sounds like he's him in particular as a GM is very liked by all the players. Like it sounds like, you know, he just constantly does right by players and like, you know, he won't screw them over and send them somewhere they don't want, and he won't you know f them over at all. So it's
So the
you got to
exact
wonder if that
opposite of
you know
Vegas.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, no,
uh
yeah, from what I've seen and heard, like, yeah, he does right by the players, and play a lot of players have a desire to go and play for a guy like Dubas because they know they're going to be treated right and taken care of.
yeah, and they also for 4.5 mil per season for 6 years got Ryan Graves. That was a pretty decent
And
signing.
that's a big one. Like they needed to bring in another guy on their blue line, and Ryan Graves is a perfect addition to them. Who he can kind of chip in offensively here and there, but he can also really like lock it down in his own end. Like just from what I'm not even including what the Penguins already have, but just from what they brought in, I wouldn't be surprised to see them like a top 5, maybe even top 3 penalty kill next season.
Yeah, they got a lot of good defensive guys coming in now, for sure. They also
Yeah.
signed Nedeljkovic for 1.5 mil, which
Yeah.
like you know what, it did not work out at all for him in Detroit, but
No.
man, was he good that first year. He definitely, I think, could have easily won the Calder
Yeah.
back in Carolina. I
Yeah.
I think like, and they have a great defensive system and a lot of good defensemen, but I think he could definitely bounce back and get somewhere around that level, especially as a backup.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It just raises a question now because you've got Jari, who's obviously, your starter, and now you've got Nedeljkovic and you've got Casey DeSmith. So, I mean, if unless the plans for Nedeljkovic to play in the AHL, I think DeSmith might find his way out of Pittsburgh through a trade at some point.
Yeah, I definitely think that's one of those. Jari's our starter, and we'll see in camp who we like better.
Yeah.
But you know, having three goalies, especially with the goalie injury luck they've had in recent years, I don't think having three goalies is a bad idea at all.
Exactly, right? Yeah. For sure.
All right. Jeez, it takes so long to scroll past them. There's so many names. Next, we got your boys, the boys in teal, San Jose Sharks.
Yeah. So this is this was the one I was talking about with Tarasenko because just recently I've been seeing on Twitter there's been rumors coming from Elliot Friedman that the Sharks are quite interested in both Tarasenko and Matthew Dumba, who are both still currently free agents. It sounds like with Dumba though, it's the biggest thing is obviously Carlson would have to be moved to bring in a guy like Dumba. But then
Yeah,
it sounds like they're kicking tires on bringing Tarasenko into their top 6. It doesn't sound like there's much steam to them, but it's kind of rumors that are swirling around, so it's kind of something to keep an eye out because that's the only thing I've heard about Tarasenko since the whole Carolina thing fell apart. So I think it'll hit the finish line with San Jose? Absolutely not, but if it happens, I'll be interested to see kind of what that deal would look like in uh, how long it would be for.
Yeah, it's unless you're giving him a boat anchor of a contract, it's never bad to get a guy for free in free agency, right? Like,
Exactly, yeah.
especially if you can recoup assets later.
Yeah, but in terms of what they've already done, like I mean, the biggest is probably re-signing Fabian Zetterlund, who's one of the pieces they got back in the Timo Meyer trade. He looked great with New Jersey last year. Had a hard time getting it going with the Sharks, but again, like talked about with Meyer, full off season with the team, spending the summer in San Jose. Just working on getting better. You could see a good season from him next year, and then they ended up getting Mackenzie Blackwood signed to a 2-year deal. Probably going to run a tandem between him and Capo Kakinen, which I mean, hopefully Blackwood works out because I mean injuries are a big concern with him. But like the skill is there. It's just he's got to be able to stay healthy for more than 10 games or so.
Yeah, it's the same conversation that you have with so many goalies. It seems like
Yeah.
it's all about health. We know they have the skill, but can they stay healthy enough? The best ability is availability.
Yeah, exactly. And then I mean, from like day one of free agency, their biggest, move was making that move to kind of help Florida out in their cap hell and get a steal of a deal on a guy like Anthony Duclair, who again, could be there potentially long term if he's a good fit, and if not, you can still get a decent package for him at the deadline. Um, and then the rest are really kind of just a bunch of depth signings for him, like Kyle Burrows, 3-year deal. Giovanni Smith, probably gonna fit into like a fourth line role. My guess would be. So nothing too crazy from the Sharks. Again, they're very much kind of like Philly, kind of committing to the rebuild for however long they need to, and then just kind of running with their core and what they got right now.
Yeah, one thing I do like that they're doing is that the majority of these guys here, like what is this, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 guys that they signed contracts to, 6 of them have either a 2 or 3 year contract. And with the state that the team is in right now, I think it's pretty hard to tell what a player is a lot of the time if they play only 1 year there and it's on a bottoming team. I think I think it gives a lot of those guys a good shake to see what they can really do by giving them 2 year contracts.
Yeah, exactly right.
And like none of these guys have a real cap hit, so it's you're not risking anything by putting 2 years on them. I'm sure most of them are two-way
Yeah.
contracts.
Yeah, and then for the rest, like Ryan Carpenter, Scott Sabrin, Nathan Todd, like all just guys to probably just AHL guys. Just those are probably going to kind of be like their 3 veteran forwards there to play with their young guys. Um, so yeah, nothing crazy and out of this world. Yeah, again, everything still always comes back to what's going to happen with Eric Carlson. You and I briefly talked last night. How it sounds like it's like Dallas is still sniffing around, Seattle, Carolina, Pittsburgh. Um, but it sounds like teams are just asking for way too much retained, but then they're not happy with the price they have to pay. And it's like, well, you can't have it both ways and expect San Jose to retain so much, but be like, yeah, we're not gonna give up a lot. It's like, well, it doesn't work
Yeah.
that way. Because at the end of the day, like I'm sure San Jose is very fine keeping Eric Carlson for you know, another year or two with the way he's been playing. But obviously, he kind of wants to go to a contender. But I don't think the Sharks are going to make a move that is really going to hinder them just to make a player happy and, potentially screw the franchise over for the duration of his contract and for however much retained.
Yeah. I think as long as they stay at, 3 mil or less would be optimal. I think as long as they keep it at 4 or less, I think they'll be fine. I don't
See,
think
I think three's
they're
the
too
perfect
strapped.
number because then you get Carlson at like 8 mil. which I think
Yeah.
isn't bad for 4 years. Like
Oh no,
that's
that's
very
great.
doable, and especially with it sounds like Pittsburgh's kind of the biggest team right now taking a run. If San Jose says, "Okay, we'll retain whatever 2.5, 3 mil, and we'll take back a Jeff Petrie and his big contract right now, or a Mikhail Granlund as part of the deal." You're also helping Pittsburgh out for this season by taking back one of their bad contracts right now, and that's still a guy that can still play, a good role for the Sharks. So it sounds like nothing's close to being done at all. Um, and then yeah, it sounds like there's still the rumors swirling of Tarasenko and Dumba. But again, I think a Carlson trade has to happen first before you can make those big free agent signings.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh would be a perfect place for him. The only thing is, I don't know if that works for San Jose as much. Pittsburgh's got one of the the shallowest uh, prospect pools in the entire league. Like
Yeah.
they don't have a ton of what San Jose's probably looking for at this point, which is really too bad because how fun would it to be watching a power play of Letang, Carlson, Crosby, Malkin, and Gensel.
Yeah,
Like,
like that. And again, you compare that with the guys that they brought in that can be great for the Bobs. Like you could easily have a top power play and a top penalty kill in the entire league. Like that would be nuts for Pittsburgh. But yeah, it's. But you know what? You never can never count out Dubas. Kind of from what I've from what we've learned over the last couple of years.
yeah, and it sounds like him with the Leafs were interested in him at the deadline. It didn't ever
Yep.
get done, but it sounds like there was interest there. So we know he likes him as a player, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. You would love
Yeah,
to bring a guy like Carlson in.
yeah. I think if they can find if maybe they involve a third team, but if Pittsburgh can find enough pieces that San Jose wants and will take back, I definitely think that's a very real possibility.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All
Yeah.
right, moving on from San Jose, we got the Kraken.
Yeah, moving up north a little bit there. Kind of quiet for Seattle, but again, like there's not many moves that they had to make. Like they're still kind of running with their core, letting their young guys grow. They brought a couple good pieces in who are going to play good roles for them next season. Um, yeah, I mean, I like the Brian Dumoulin one the most. I think out of their signings.
Yeah, I think that's a really good contract. 3.15 mil for 2 seasons is pretty good.
And
Also,
you
the
know exactly
Yamamoto
what you're going to
signing.
get with him.
Yeah, I like the Yamamoto signing as well. 1.5 for 1 year. That's really low risk, but
High reward.
that could pay off so huge. You know, if he goes there and he really breaks out as a guy that it just wasn't happening over in Edmonton. Maybe he finds the right line mates or whatever it takes. He could definitely be a steal for that team.
Oh yeah, like for sure. I think that's yeah, and like yeah, that's it's such a low risk, high reward move. And if it doesn't work out, it's like okay, that's fine, but like it could pay off huge for them. So I'm very curious to see what kind of role he fits in with Seattle and how they're kind of looking to build their team. Is they're really starting to look to be a consistent playoff team for the next couple, you know, 5+ years at least.
Yeah, yeah. I think they're looking to be in a really good direction, especially over in the Pacific. That's at the moment looking weak. A lot of those teams are starting to look like they've got their rebuild settled. So I don't think they have too long before the division gets kind of nasty again. But right now, I
Yeah,
think I think right now is when you got to go for it. Same as like the Kings.
yeah. And it's also gonna be interesting to see how a guy like Shane Wright comes in like, and I've already said, like, going back to the draft just this year alone, I think Seattle just smashed it. Had one of the best drafts of any team. And then they still got a guy
Mhm.
like Shane Wright who, it's again, it's you don't know what you're fully going to be getting from him because um he looked great in the World Juniors. People thought he was going to be a first overall pick, drops to 4, and then um struggled to even stay consistently in the lineup when he was in the AHL. So he's got a lot of work to do, but he still could be a very big part of the Kraken team come next season. If all
Yeah,
goes right for him.
he only got drafted a year ago. I think a lot of people are writing him off too quickly. Everyone's like, well,
Oh
he
yeah,
dropped to 4th overall. That doesn't change his skill level. Whether he goes first or fourth, he's the same player. Like
yeah.
he is
He's
a
still good
first
enough to
over.
even be considered first overall.
Yeah, he is at the very least very close to first overall skill level. And I think he's still incredibly young. I don't even know if he's 20 yet. Like he's got plenty of room to grow. And I think in a fresh new franchise like Seattle, there's got to be very few places as good to do it.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, yeah. All right, so moving on from Seattle, what do we got next? I believe it's St. Louis.
Yeah, the
The
St. Louis
Blues.
Blues.
They did
I
like nothing.
recognize one of the names on here, and that's Malcolm Subban.
Yeah, they again, I a very similar to I said with Philly. I think they're kind of in a position where they kind of got to go for at least a retool, maybe not a full rebuild. Um, Given some of the guys that they've got on that team already locked in, I think a rebuild is more on the horizon for them. We're trying to do like or not a rebuild, a quick retool at least, and try to get back
Yeah.
into it. But like they really didn't do much to start off free agency here, so I'm not too sure what they got brewing over there in St. Louis right now.
Yeah, I kind of expected them to be busier. They freed up a decent bit of cap space on the back half of the season by the trade deadline. They sent out Achari, they sent out O'Reilly, and they really haven't done much with any of that room. I'm not sure if they had like extensions kicking in or not, but
I think they
they
had a like one or two maybe, but like still, yeah, I'm just and rumors have been going on for the better half of since like December of Colton Parayko being traded, and now I've heard absolutely nothing on that. So I don't know if St. Louis is bringing him back open arms, or if there's still maybe a deal that's gonna happen. Um,
do you know the what his cap hit is, Colton Parayko? Is he at like 6 mil?
I want to believe he's just a tad under. I think he's around like the 5.5, if I'm not mistaken. I'll pull it up here quickly to double check here what he's getting. But I don't like it. It's nothing egregious by any means.
Yeah, because
Um,
I mean, obviously, we're always every hockey fan when some player like that gets brought up, they're thinking, "Oh, is that right for my team?" And you know what? A big defenseman who can move bodies in front. That's exactly what Tampa needs. If they could get that for 50% retained, 2.5 mil, I wouldn't be super
okay,
opposed to that.
so he's got 7 years left at 6.5.
Oh, I did not know it was that fresh of a contract or
Yeah.
at that much. Never mind.
So at that point now, after day one of free agency went on, teams giving out all this money, that's a tough contract to move. And he's got a no trade
Oof.
clause. I don't know exactly what that no trade clause is, but so that kind of gives him some room to kind of decide or at least play somewhat of a role in deciding where he goes if a trade is to happen.
Yeah. If a player has a no trade clause and they get traded, do you know, like, does that trade clause carry over in the exact same way? Like, if you have a full no trade and you go somewhere, do you control your rights over there now as well?
Um, I'm honestly not too sure how that works.
Yeah, I
I'm
kind of
really
imagine
not
it
fully sure.
because most of those guys, if they, are that adamant they're going to one specific team, they end up not, needing to worry about getting traded or anything. But it would be
Yeah.
interesting to see, a guy like that, he gets sent somewhere like he's like, well, I'm signed for 7 years, so they can't move me. So I'll say send me to Chicago, and then I'll just lock myself in for 7 years with Bedard or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not too sure how that all works out there.
And maybe we'll have to do some research after this.
Yeah, find out at some point how that works. But yeah, I don't
Also,
really got much more to say with the Blues. Like it's pretty quiet, underwhelming for them so
yeah.
far.
Also, UFA for them right now. Um, Famed slapshot legend Martin Firk, the
Yeah,
hardest shot of all time, to my knowledge,
yeah. When he was in the AHL.
and with the Ontario Reign, I believe, ripped a like it was like 112 or 115 miles per hour or something like that. I think it was nuts.
Yeah, no, yeah, I can't remember what it was fully clocked in at, but yeah, that was nuts for him. Um, yeah, I don't really got much on the Blues though necessarily.
Yeah, I guess we can move on. And next up, we got my boys, the boys in blue, Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, so what would I know they had a couple that we were pretty big on for them making there.
Yeah, the definitely the main one to talk about is the Connor Sheary deal. 3 years at 2 mil per year. That's a really good value for a guy that'll be able to
Really,
be the
I really like that
sixth
one.
man in the top six.
Yeah, I really like that deal for them.
Yeah, and man, boy, did we need it because Tampa fans seem pretty divided on what they think for a lot of the other signings that we've made.
Yeah,
And I know I've seen very conflicting things about Josh Archibald. I mean, so he's on a two-way contract for 800 grand. So you could bury it in the AHL if he's not doing what you need him to do. But it sounds, I was hearing from some people that he's often a defensive liability. But he played with Edmonton and Pittsburgh for a while, so I never really saw much of his game.
yeah. I'm not too sure on that. Like the biggest ones for me, like I think Connor Sheary, that one's great. Luke Glendening, that one's awesome.
I
Just
like that one.
on a pure defensive aspect, Calvin DeHaan is a great,
Yeah.
defenseman. Loves to block shots. Like, I'm curious to see what their plans are, kind of with Tanner Jeannot, because he's still, qualified RFA, so they still gotta figure out a deal with him. They shipped out Corey Perry, Patrick Maroon, like. So I'm kind of I'm
I
kind of
think
curious to see how they're building this team up going into next year.
yeah, we had a more skilled and physical fourth line than a lot of teams, but they weren't very fast. None of them were very quick at
Yeah,
that point in their careers. I think Pat Maroon was the youngest of the three. Uh, but I really like Glendening as a replacement for Pierre-Edouard Bellemare
yeah,
because they play such an insanely similar game. Deep down in the bottom six, great on face-offs, great on the penalty kill. Like I think that's a great replacement signing. I think they're hoping to get a lot younger and faster in the bottom six, and instead of all these older guys. Um, I believe they
yeah,
filed for arbitration with Jeannot. I don't
yeah,
think it's going to get there. I think they'll probably sign something before that. But I'm really excited to see what that deal is going to be because after his past 2 years, I don't know how he makes a ton of money. His only real bargaining chip in arbitration is they gave up a lot of picks for me. But
Yeah, I imagine it ends up somewhere in the range of like 1.75 to 2 mil for like 2 years, I would say. I think it's
yeah,
probably fair for a guy like him. And then, you know, 2 years down the road, then you reevaluate and kind of go from there.
yeah,
But yeah, I
if
don't think it reaches arbitration. I think like Tampa's got some kind of plan to get something done. It's just a matter of when they get that done.
yep, I'll even take up to 2.5, maybe even 3 mil if we can get a little more term on it. If we can get him for 2.5 or lower at like 5 years, I think that would be a great signing.
Yeah, yeah, because based on he came into the league hot and heavy, and then it's kind of tailed off. So like he's not in the area where he can command for a lot. So yeah, you kind of got to see like yeah, I guess yeah, and and Tampa Bay isn't shy to give out bigger contracts to some players. So if they want
Yeah,
him to be part of the team long term, maybe yeah, you give him like a 2.5 to 3 mil a year for 5 or 6 or something if you can pull that off and try and run with it that way. I'm not sure if that would fully get through at that AAV for him if he wants to commit that long, um, but again, he can't command for too much, I don't think.
no. I'm surprised that neither of Stamkos or Brandon Hagel have signed their extensions yet. The last few years, barring Ross Colton going to arbitration, he didn't go all the way, but he filed for it and then they signed him. Uh, they've signed almost every deal, like July 1st or like early July 2nd. So the fact that
Yeah.
we're almost a week out from that and I haven't heard any talks about either of them not concerning, but I'm surprised that they didn't have something lined up at least for Stamkos.
Yeah, and I think either way, I think we kind of know if Stamkos is to sign. I feel like, I mean, he's probably like if he's to sign extension, I put him like maybe somewhere because what's he making now? He's flat at 8 mil.
Eight and a half.
Eight now, so you could probably get him in like 2 3 years, say like 7.5 to 8 mil. I think would get it done.
Yeah, I'd honestly be fine with 2 or 3 more years at that 8.5. I honestly, if he is fine just staying at the same number, I wouldn't hate keeping him around at that.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, yeah. Keeping him right where he's at, that's not a bad deal at all.
But yeah, hopefully they get some of those extensions put in sooner rather than later.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
All right. Moving on to the Toronto Maple Leafs. They were kind of
They had
busy
a
in the past few
big,
days.
yeah. The Brad Tree Living show is like officially underway there now. Like they went out swinging here to start off free agency here.
Yeah, they signed.
Like which one do you want to start with?
I mean, what's the biggest one? I guess you'd probably call it the Bertuzzi signing, right?
I think yeah, the Bertuzzi one's probably the biggest one. Like it's pretty much again, it's another kind of all in for Toronto. They're bringing in guys on 1 year deals, and it's like we either win the cup this year or we don't, and then it's you leave in free agency type of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. They got Bertuzzi signed to 1 year, Max Domi for 1 year, John Klingberg for 1 year.
and then
Not
Ryan
Ryan
Reeves for
Reeves though.
3.
They wanted three. They wanted him with term.
Yeah, and you know what? That's not even a bad sign though, because again, I feel like as much as people say oh the league's young and faster, like you need your fourth line to have speed and skill. It's like a guy like Ryan Reeves can still be very effective, and even if he doesn't play the full 82 games, like if you know you use him sparingly, so it's like against certain teams, it's like we're gonna run with a run and gun fourth line of speed and skill, but then you play some bigger, heavier teams. It's like we need a guy like Reeves in there to be able to kind of throw the body and stand up for the guys when need be. Like I think he'll do just fine with Toronto. I think 3 years is a little crazy there, but again, like you kind of got to do what you got to do to get the guy that you need for certain roles to help the team out. Throughout the course of next season.
Yeah, I think he fills a good role there, although because just like you were saying, he doesn't have to play all 82. He can really slot well into the role that Wayne Simmons has had for the Leafs for the past couple of years, where he just comes in and gives them that tough guy, gives them some grit when they need it. I think they definitely could have used it from a guy who's a bit quicker. I really do think Reeves is a defensive liability a lot of the time when he's out there, so you have to use him pretty sparingly. I think
when
a guy
he's in the lineup,
like Pat Maroon, he's definitely still can keep up with people while running around and being tough and being a shithead.
Yeah, like Ryan Reeves, like when he's in the lineup, you're gonna get at most out of him 8 minutes a night. Like if it's anything more than that, then that's an area for concern. Even the Klingberg one, like he was a beast with Dallas for years, and also just kind of dropped off. Like he signed that 1 year deal with Anaheim, got traded to Minnesota. Just never really looked like the same guy. Now he's going to Toronto. I'm not sure what role he's going to be used in.
I mean, he's a power play specialist, and they've got Morgan Riley on the power play already.
Yeah, and then they've still got Timothy Liljegren, who, they were so big on him that they felt comfortable getting rid of Rasmus Sandin, who looks like they might have wanted to hold on to him a bit longer. So I don't,
he's looking really
fully
good.
know what Klingberg's role is going to be, but I think the biggest ones is just Bertuzzi and Domi are such very similar players, and I think those are just great signings for Toronto. Like, I think both of them are going to slot up into the top 6 with their big 4 there. Both on 1 year deals, so it doesn't affect anything in terms of if they can get an extension for Matthews or Nylander for next year. Bertuzzi and Domi, those contracts, even Klingberg, those don't have any effect on any extensions they make. So like I love those signings for them. It's just, is it going to work out, or is it going to be again, this is Toronto's year, and then it's disappointment again? I guess we guys kind of got to wait and see how it's just going to shape out for them, because I'm really curious to see how their top 6 is going to look with Bertuzzi and Domi in there.
Yeah, for sure. That's got to suck for Klingberg, because back when he was with Dallas, what was he offered? Wasn't it like 8 years at $8 million? And he turned it down because he wanted to get, he wanted like $9 million per year or something like that. And he ended up going to free agency, or he ended up getting moved to Anaheim, however that happened. And I mean, now he's signed for, what is it, 4.15 mil for 1 year with the Leafs.
That's back-to-back years where he's just had to sign 1 year contracts. And it's like, it almost feels like he's not even really a full-on veteran yet. And it feels like he's cup chasing. He's just going team to team, and so I'm really curious to see what happens with him, beyond this year. If he does good with Toronto, does he finally find a home there? Even Max Domi, I keep saying, when's he gonna find somewhere? Toronto's where his dad played, so Domi's very excited to join the Leafs. Like, maybe the Leafs are finally a team that he can stay with long term. But again, the big thing always comes back to they got to get those extensions with Matthews and Nylander figured out, or whatever they're going to do with them. Have those figured out before they even worry about anything else with their team.
Yeah, they definitely need to figure out what they're going to do with. They're definitely going to re-sign Matthews, I think. I think we got to figure out what's going on with Nylander.
I think my honest opinion right now is Nylander does get traded at some point.
Yeah.
It sounds like the teams are just too far apart like Nylander is it sounds like he's asking for, I think up, like it sounds like potentially even close to 10 mil.
You can't have
Um,
four guys at 10 mil or above. You
well,
can't do it.
exactly,
Not in the
right?
cap, not in the era that we're in right now.
And
That's
like I feel like a
absurd.
good area for Nylander is kind of in that 8.5 range. And even still then, like then that's taking away more of your team's cap space, and then you're really committing to that core big four you have that hasn't really won you shit all really. Like you've gotten past the first round once, great, and then but what you got like piss stomped in the second round. So
Yeah, they didn't even put up a fight in the second round. Like they they can't go at it again, and I don't think they will because this is Tree Living's now. You know, that was the Kyle Dubas project. Now this is Tree Living's team, and I think he's gonna want to build it in his own image, starting with tearing down that infamous core four in Toronto. Even though it's really kind of the core five. You know, people don't include Morgan Riley in there as much,
yeah,
but
and I even think you move Nylander, you can get a haul back for him. Like you can get a good um like package back for Nylander if you move him. And then moving
yeah,
Nylander, you can even invest that money you save by not giving him that big extension into giving, Bertuzzi, say, a 5-year deal at, even just maybe Bertuzzi and Domi both together at like 5-year deals at 5 mil each or something. And then that's
yeah,
still two
like
great players for the price of one Nylander. But then you include all the stuff like the picks, prospects you're getting back for Nylander. Like I think that's probably the way to go for Toronto, assuming that Bertuzzi and Domi work out there and are actually good fits within that team. So yeah, a lot of big stuff is going to be for Toronto over the next year's time of what's all going to happen there.
yeah, they between those two signings in free agency, with Domi and Bertuzzi, that's a lot of value. That's not I don't know if that's close to Nylander value, but like that's a lot of value you just got for free. So if you can use the
Yeah.
Nylander to sign those two, then all the picks, players, prospects, whatever you get from that deal is just gravy, really.
Yeah, exactly right. For sure.
But
All
I
right, enough
guess
enough
moving
about
on.
Toronto now. Yeah, enough about
Yeah,
them.
there's enough Toronto media out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving on to Vancouver, down to the V's. We're getting close to the end.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
They made
Um,
a couple. They made a couple moves. They're
a
not
couple like
historically
more
known for
depth
great moves,
signings.
but
Yeah. Well, it's probably a relief for Canucks fans to not see them go out and, spend big money on guys or trade for guys making big money. Like it's finally a year where it's a little more calm and tame over there. They're trying to get their ducks in a row and get shit figured out over there, which is not an easy position. There, all things considered, but um, I don't hate these depth signings that they've made though. Like Teddy Bluger, Ian Cole, each signing 1-year deals. Carson Soucy with 3-year deal. Like I think these are good signings for the Canucks that just kind of help bolster their depth more throughout their lineup.
yeah, I think after watching Ian Cole play a year in Tampa, I think he feels so much more like a Canuck than he was a Bolt.
Yeah.
He's a good player. He's got good upside to him. He's fairly good two-way game. Like he's pretty decent offensively, and he can also be good defensively. But he has those moments that it really feels like the Canucks have more than a lot of teams, where he'll take like a hooking penalty because he's skiing behind someone, and then you'll realize the guy he was holding on to was like Radko Gudas or something. Like it's not even like a
Yeah.
fast guy. Like the amount of holding penalties he took this past year was astounding. And like none of them were against guys who should be like obviously beating him to the puck.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
he
God.
definitely, those are the moments that are frustrating. So you really notice them a lot. But he had a lot of good moments as well, a lot of solid games. So I think the Canucks fans will be happy enough with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's gonna do just fine there in what they need. What and just what they need out of him and what he's gonna bring. And again, like it's a 1 year deal. So if he works out great, it's like awesome. Okay, now we can re-sign you, bring you back for maybe a bigger contract. And if it doesn't work, then it's like okay, it's a 1 year deal. So it's no harm on either side.
Yeah, there's been a lot of 1 year deals this free agency because I think it's a lot of guys coming off of down years, and we'll
Yeah.
we'll see which ones stick around.
Yeah, but I'm big on the Carson Soucy one for them. I think he's gonna bring
Yeah,
so he can bring some good offensive upside for them. He can also kind of shut it down his own end. Um, so I think he'll fill a good role for them, and I think that's why he got that 3 year contract is because he can provide a little bit more longer term for the Canucks.
yeah, I think that's a really good signing for them. 3.25 million average cost. I think that's more than fair for the team.
Yeah.
Moving on, Vegas Golden Knights.
Pass.
They, I mean, according to this, they haven't signed anyone.
Yeah,
I
they've
think
done
they made a
nothing.
couple trades,
I
but
don't think trades like their biggest one was they got Aiden Hill re-signed to a 2 year deal, 4.9 million. That's a great deal for Hill and the Golden Knights, but like we kind of knew that was going to happen. I think Logan Thompson's kind of getting pushed out. It's kind of tough to be him. Uh,
yeah,
but like other than that, there's really just nothing for Vegas news, and I mean they've won the cup, so I don't care to talk about them too much.
yeah. Fortunately for you, it doesn't look like there's really much news beyond that. Phil
Perfect.
Kessel's out
Works for
there
me.
eating hot dogs out of the cup again.
Okay, so
Like,
actually, I wanted to go back to that because Phil Kessel is one of the more notable names that's still currently a free agent right now. Because like he signed a 1 year deal with Vegas, it expired. I'm very curious to see where Phil Kessel goes because I could almost see like because he's at the point where he's just going to sign a 800K deal or a 1 million like 1 year deal, like nothing crazy. But the funny part is he's at 992 points. So I was like
wow.
thinking, like, man, imagine if like, Toronto is like, hey, come back and run it back with us, try and help us bring a cup here finally. And then imagine Phil Kessel getting his 1000th point with the Maple Leafs. Like I think that would be such a cool moment to see. Really don't think it's gonna happen. I don't ever see him going back to Toronto. But that would be such a cool thing to see him get that 1000th point there as a member of the Leafs.
Yeah, that would be super cool to see him go back there. Um, I mean, honestly, I could also see him for cheap signing back with Pittsburgh and going back there for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely, a possibility based on the way the Penguins are going. Like they might need a guy like Kessel in there. And he could fill a good role for them.
Yeah, I don't other than, signing somewhere he's already been, I don't know where else he'd go, but I definitely feel like he's going to be a good value target for whoever does get him because I don't think he's signing
Yeah.
for much more than a mil at this point, but I think
Yeah,
he's
no.
definitely plays like he's worth more than that.
Exactly, right? Yeah, for sure. So we've only got two teams left here.
We're getting right down to it. These guys were fairly busy. They signed some good contracts and a big one that I don't remember seeing, but again, there was a couple that apparently I missed. The Washington Capitals They re-signed up with Martin Furavari for 3 years.
Yeah, which is good to bring him back. So kind of needed him back there on the blue line, especially with the departure of Orlov. So I think that's a good signing for both Feravari and the Capitals for the next 3 years.
Yeah, just under 2.7 mil average for those 3 years. Pretty good signing.
The big
And
one
then
though,
they got Max Pacioretty for 1 year for only 2 million.
yeah. So and that's a high risk, high reward. Um, well, actually, I mean, it kind of is high risk because well, I guess not really because it's only 1 year. But we don't know what we're gonna get from Pacioretty because he looked great in the small sample size with Carolina after being traded there last offseason. But to come into next season, he's going to be coming off back-to-back Achilles injuries.
Yeah.
And so I just don't know if he's going to be able to even play a full season or what's his skating going to be like? Is he going to be able to still be able to kind of mix it up and get in the dirty areas? We have no idea what type of Max Pacioretty we're going to be getting. I hope it's the Pacioretty that we've known from his days with Montreal and Vegas, but I'm just not sure we're going to be able to get that from him after these recent injuries.
Yeah, I think this is honestly one of the lowest risk contracts, just because not only is it kind of a low value at 2 million, but also there's if he can't play at that level and he's ends up getting injured again,
He's
that's
someone LTIR.
right back on LTIR. Teams have been
Yeah.
using him for the last few years now to get some extra cap space with LTIR. So
Yeah. So yeah, it's not
it would be
really
nice to see
much
him
of a
bounce
risk,
back for sure. It'd
Yeah.
be
I mean,
really
and
nice to see
that's
him do it again.
yeah, between him and Fairvar, that's really kind of the big moves for the Caps as of right now. I think those rumors are still swirling of Kuznetsov. He's requested a trade out of there. His contract's pretty brutal, and based on his play lately, I'm not sure how they're going to be able to move him, and if they do, to where, and is there salary retention? I'm not sure. That Pat Treddy one is a good signing, just because, like you said, yeah, it can either it could work out really well, and that's great value for $2 million, or the injuries are still there, and he just goes to LTIR, and it doesn't affect your cap situation at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised he chose the Caps. Like, because he hasn't won a cup yet, has he?
No, that because Vegas dumped him, and then they go on to win the following year.
So
So yeah, he's still searching for a cup.
he's got to be wanting a cup, but I mean, you're not. I don't think you're going to find it in this next year on that 1 year contract in Washington.
Yeah, and especially not with how the Metro, how loaded the Metro is, and even the Atlantic going in next year. I don't see Washington being a legit cup contender, barring something incredible happening for that organization.
Yeah, that's a good signing by them, but it's a strange choice by Pacioretty. Maybe that was the most money available out there. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. You never quite know. Maybe there was more teams that were just a little bit too hesitant on giving him a contract based on those injuries, and Washington was the one team willing to take that risk.
Yeah, and other than that, I guess it's really just Matthew Phillips, who I guess maybe around the league isn't as big of a signing, but we've heard quite a bit about it here in Calgary, just because
Yeah.
it sounds like Calgary was willing to offer him a little bit more money at 2 years, and he took the discount and in money and years to go to the Capitals. It's just another guy who doesn't seem to want to stick around with the Flames.
I don't think it's necessarily he didn't want to stick around with the Flames. I think was more so just fed up because what is he? He's 25 now, and he's been with the Flames organization since they drafted him. He's from the area, so I'm sure it wasn't easy for him to now he was never given the opportunity to play in the NHL with the Flames. And I get now it sucks because they brought in this new coach, new GM and whatnot. So maybe there was finally the chance for him to play in the NHL. But I think at this point in his career, he didn't want to run the risk of, you know, maybe playing the NHL, but if not, he's back in the AHL for another year. And all of a sudden he's 26, and then by that point you're pretty much done. Like your chances of coming back and being an NHL player are pretty much kind of crushed by then. So it looks like he's kind of
betting on himself a little bit to make an impact in the NHL over there.
Exactly, right. So I really hope he does well. I think he's a great player.
Yeah.
He's a little undersized, but again, guys like Martin St. Louis proved that, you know, even though you're a little bit undersized, you can still be a valuable player on the ice and contribute in big moments for your team and whatnot. So, and maybe Matthew Phillips will get that opportunity with Washington.
Yeah, that'd be really nice to see him do well over there.
Yeah.
Last team here, I guess. We got the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, nothing crazy. I'm kind of just re-signing some of their guys like Nemestikov that they brought in the deadline. Re-signing him, Dylan Sandberg, bringing him back for another 2 years. Johnson Fial will be 2 years there. And then just a couple smaller ones like bringing in Brossoit, bringing him back from Vegas. I guess we talked about, they let David Riddick go, so Brossoit is coming back to Winnipeg to fill that backup role, maybe the starting role if Hellebuck, gets traded, which, unsure of what's happening there. Yeah, I mean they kind of made their big moves getting that haul back for Dubois, and
Dubois.
Gonna kind of try and convince maybe Scheifele to stick around. It sounds like Hellebuck's not at all. Maybe they can convince Scheifele to stick around. But yeah, for the most part, kind of looks like they're for the most part kind of running back the same team as of right now, with the additions of like a Gabriel Velarde, maybe Kupari if he makes the team, and then obviously minus Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Yeah, I think this team's going to start going into an interesting direction. I kind of hope they can move Scheifele at some point here. I think that'd just be good for the team, good for the organization. Move him, move Wheeler out, kind of establish the new core of young guys, and out with the old, in with the new. Move forward with what you have now. I think it'd be really
the Jets aren't in a position to rebuild. Hence why kind of the package they got back for Dubois is like, we know he doesn't want to be here, but we're not just going to trade him for a bunch of 18-year-old prospects and draft picks. Like, we want to get guys back who can still be impact now players for us and can still be part of our team as we still try to push for the playoffs in the coming years. So a Scheifele trade will be interesting because, again, it's probably you want to get guys back who can still contribute to your team now, not project players that you have to grow for a couple years before they come up and can make an impact.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do, especially with Hellebuck. Like, him going to any team, that's a total game changer for that team. So yeah. Hopefully it'll be interesting to see if he goes to a real contending team. But as a Lightning fan, I don't know if I want to see a team like the Devils with Connor Hellebuck too. Like,
yeah, that would be.
I don't want them to be unstoppable.
Yeah, right. They would easily be the wagon in the East to try and keep up with in the standings and whatnot.
Yep, but
yeah, kind of wraps up
that's all 32.
Our teams, yeah. Like some of the big names still available, like we talked about. Phil Kessel's out there, Thomas Tatar, even Jonathan Taves, Patrick Kane, Phil Kessel. There's still some players out there. Tarasenko, Matt Dumba. So we got some guys we're kind of waiting to see on where they go, what happens with them. Like we talked about, numerous players whose names are out there in the trade market. So like this offseason's still far from being over. There's still a lot of big moves to be made, and we'll keep everybody updated on them as they slowly happen.
Yeah, and just looking because at the end of this article we used to kind of read off of, it's also got offer sheet compensation numbers,
Oh yeah.
which I think is interesting. And so if you pay a player just over $6.4 million, the other team has to give up a first round, second round, and third round pick. So that means if you pay them 6.4 even, you'll still be in the tier above or below that, I guess, which is a first and a third. So could
Yeah.
like the Rangers cannot handle a $6.4 million contract for Lafreniere,
No,
but
they absolutely can.
I would easily give them that for 1 or 2 years and then give up a first and a third for him. Like,
Oh yeah.
that seems like a no
All
brainer
day.
for a lot of teams, man.
Yeah.
I I hate this weird uh, respect thing that teams have for each other where they don't want to offer sheet.
Yeah,
Like
exactly, right? Like I just want
like
to offer sheets just make it more exciting, and I wish more teams would get in on it, especially when you got a guy like Lafreniere available on the market there.
yeah, it's not like he's some nobody. Like they
Yeah,
like
exactly, right?
I would get it if teams didn't want to offer sheet for like, you know, like if Toronto doesn't want to offer sheet a guy from Columbus. I just know because they do a lot of trading back and forth, those two teams specifically. You know, if that's like a
Yeah.
very common trade partner, you might not want to sully that. But like to just be like, I don't want to piss off any of the other GMs. uh, You should be pissing them off. You want to win. That pisses them off, doesn't it? Like you go out there and do what's best for your team at a certain point.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like hopefully we see a day and age where offer sheets become more popular. I really don't think within the near future we're ever going to see offer sheets become popular, but we can always kind of just hope and dream that that we'll start to see some eventually at some point.
Yeah. But yeah, good talk on all the free agency. This took quite a while, but we got through it.
Power
Hopefully,
through.
we did everyone's teams justice out there. You know, there's a couple of
We
them.
worked with what we were
Chicago,
given by them.
we didn't talk too much about, but that was good conversation. I like that.
Yeah, that was. I mean, everyone realistically looking back, like the two teams that really didn't get much attention throughout this is Chicago and Vegas, but they're kind of the big winners because Vegas just won the cup and Chicago got Bedard, so
Yeah,
their fans have gotten enough love from all the media lately, anyways. So they don't need us.
yeah. Vegas is GM's probably busy partying, and well, I mean, Chicago's probably also still busy partying because he just drafted Bedard.
Yeah, exactly right. So
He
they
did.
got
He
nothing
did
to
all
worry
his
about.
moves before free agency, trading for people's rights and then signing them instead of
Yeah.
getting the free agents, which is kind of smart, you know, making sure that you get those guys, even if you're overpaying them, you know, if they're not going to the cap.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. Yeah.
All right.
But
I guess that
yeah.
wraps everything up.
Yeah, I think so. Anything last off you wanna add here before we end this one off?
Pretty much just that the next episode's probably going to be something about the NHL awards. We're probably finally going to get around to talking about that. But no, other than that, I'm good.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks to everybody for listening, and we will see you in the next one.